NACDL is the association of the nation's criminal defense bar.
So power presence, let's just jump right in. I have a lot to cover. I'm going to kind of go through things a little bit quickly. If you have questions, please ask. I'm going to stop for moments to get your feedback on some things because I want to get to sort of the meat of the workshop, which is you all working on your material. Okay. So this is me. I started life as an actor. I was from Los Angeles, spent a long time on theater, film, and television, doing a lot of work on screen. But my background is really as a classically trained actor, and that's the perspective that I bring to a lot of my work with my clients. I'm also a certified executive coach. So I do go into companies and I work with executives and leaders at all levels. I own a company called Presenting You, which is a communication consulting and coaching company. And I am a member of ASTC, where I get an opportunity to work with all of you on a regular basis. So I'm really glad to be here. A little bit about my start. Like I said, I was in Los Angeles. I had sort of a watershed moment in my life about 20 years ago. I was summoned for jury duty. And so I went to the LA courthouse, and I was one of those weird people who was actually looking forward to being on a jury. I thought it was something kind of cool. I had never seen a trial before except for television. And so I thought, well, this might be kind of neat as an actor. I can go in there and kind of check out the theatrics of a trial. So I remember the first day I went in, sitting in the jury box, just kind of like this excitement in the air. And I'm ready for this, this event. And the plaintiff's attorney walks up to the jury's box and starts to speak. And for the next 20 minutes, I don't remember what he said. It was just very flat, right? Monotone voice, no eye contact, poor gesturing, no movement. And I thought, oh my goodness, right? Finished up, defense attorney speaks, not much better. And for the next week, I sat in that jury box and thought, man, there's got to be a way. There's got to be a way to make this more exciting. So I had a little aha moment. And I thought, well, what if I took my acting skills and I started working with lawyers on presentation skills? So I did. I started a business called the Lawyers Performance Lab. And for the next several years, I worked with hundreds of attorneys on exactly these things and made a lot of great progress. I'm proud to say, helped a lot of people, won a lot of cases, made a lot of money, and had a lot of success. And then I decided to move on and sort of scale up to some more professions. So I started going into companies. I started going to universities, small businesses, Fortune 500 companies. Worked with a lot of high-level executives, leaders of all levels. And we always worked on one thing. One area I always found that people could improve upon in their communication skills is presence. Now, presence is kind of one of those words. It's a little bit like, well, what is presence, right? It's a little nebulous. You hear, I come from the world of theater. So for me, stage presence is a very common expression. Like, do they have stage presence? Do they have something that makes people want to engage with them and look at them? So this is where we're going to be talking about today is presence. And again, anything that you need to share, please share. So before we kind of jump in, I want you to think about somebody that you know, could be a colleague, a friend, a family member, somebody that you think of who has a dynamic presence. And I just want you to, in chat, just drop in one word, one quality that person has that gives them that dynamic presence. What's a word, an adjective that you could drop in chat that gives that person a dynamic presence? Delivery, volume, charisma, great. Keep them coming. These are great. Joyful. I like joyful. Notice that the forceful and joyful, how different those two things seem to be. Good. Keep them coming. Volume, charisma, connection. Great. So these are all wonderful words, wonderful descriptors, qualities of presence. So let's kind of jump into, here we go. Like able to project them. So, okay, great. From a projection point of view. Got it. Thank you for qualifying that. All right. So let's jump into the definition of presence. This is my definition. You might have something else, and that's absolutely fine. If you have anything you want to add to this, I have no problem with that. The heightened awareness where your attention and your intention is focused on meaningful communication with your audience. So by heightened awareness, I mean that feeling of when all of your senses are activated. Too bad sports metaphor, but think about shooting the game-winning free throw, right? You walk up to the line, there's 1 second left on the clock. You got the teams lined up on the line, you got the audience, you got the crowd, ref hands you the ball, and what are you focused on? Hitting the shot, right? Now you're aware that there's a crowd, you're aware that there's players, you're aware of the referee, but all of your intention and your intention is on that basket, right? So what if we took that and put it on our audience, right? The most important word in this is audience. And for all of you, we need to ask, who is the audience? Who's your audience? And this is where you can feel free to just jump on in and speak. Who's the audience? Jury. All right. And the next question would be, what does the jury want? Information. Okay. Besides information, entertainment, a story. Good. I like that. Adam. Anything else? What do they want?
You want to hear your personal opinion, even though you can't give it.
Okay. I like this. Found this definition. It kind of resonated with me. Waiting to be led to a place of acceptance of a verdict that is meaningful to them. In order to do that, you have to make the jury want to listen to what you have to say. That means you will have to earn their trust. When I sat on that trial 20 years ago, those two attorneys that I watched for a week did not earn people's trust. And it had nothing to do with their lawyering skills. It had nothing to do with the preparation of the case. By the way, and we're not talking about that, right? That's separate from what we're having here. It's from a purely presence point of view, presentational, right? How they showed up in court. You have to earn their trust. If people don't trust you, they're not going to listen to you. So I want to ask you to write down right now what qualities do you have? So you listed those qualities at the beginning: confidence, forceful, joyful. One or two qualities, and you do not have to share these on chat unless you want to. Why a jury trusts you? What do you bring to the table that people want to trust? So if you walk up to the jury box, you go, I trust this person because honesty. Great. That's great. Authenticity is probably another word for that. Anything else? And by the way, you don't not have to share this if you don't want to, but think about something. What do you bring to the table? And if you don't have anything right now, that's fine. What do you bring to the table? Why should a jury trust you? And by the way, this doesn't start when you open your mouth. It starts from the minute they see you in the courtroom. It could be the minute they see you in the parking lot, right? You don't even know who each other are, but you pull in your car, you pull in the parking lot, someone cuts you off, you get mad at them. Next thing you know, you see the jury, a juror sees you in court. They've already formed an opinion about you and you don't even know who that person is. So presence extends beyond the courtroom, right? It begins before you even walk into the courtroom. So why you? Why should people trust you? It's just some things to think about. Here's a little study. You guys can read it yourself. I don't need to go over it with you. But if you look at the left chart, the behaviors that matter most, just go down that chart, and some of these things were on the list that you all just dropped into chat. What here do you do well? And again, you don't have to share this. Just this is for you. What do you do well from this standpoint? Confident, decisive, commanding. And then let's juxtapose that on the right side. The things that you could probably still work on, right? We all have things that we could still work on. Lacking in confidence, too verbose, right? You're indecisive, unorganized. That's a big one I see, right? People unorganized or unrehearsed. So just take a little stock. What do you do well? What are some things you need to work on? And by the way, if you want to write these things down just for future reference, I think it's always a powerful thing for when I coach my clients, is to really do a brutally honest self-evaluation of the areas that you need to work on. But also what you need to do well, because the areas that you naturally do well, those are your strengths, and always play to your strengths. Always play to your strengths, but still work on the areas that you need a little bit of work on. All right, so 3 components of presence. So we kind of went over what presence was. I believe that these are the 3 components of presence. One is mindset, right? Present here. It all starts in your brain. We're going to go through this in a second. And then things that are a little bit more technical. Body language, and Koichi said it earlier, voice. You fuse these three components together and you are a powerful communicator, but they all need to work together. There's a sort of synergistic effect, right? It's hard to have one without the other. You can be great body language, but if nobody can hear you, it doesn't matter. You can have a powerful dynamic voice, but if you disappear physically, no one's going to see you. All right, so we have to have all three things. So let's kind of break these down. I'm going to go through this quickly again. If you have questions, please feel free to stop me. Mindset. We've all heard this term before. Anybody want to kind of give us a definition of emotional intelligence or what they think it might be? Self-awareness. Yeah, we have some in chat here. Understanding interpersonal dynamics. Great. And even deeper than that is being able to manage emotions, right? Being self-aware of what you're feeling, being able to manage, self-regulate. Daniel Goleman, who sort of popularized the word back in the 90s, he didn't invent it, but he wrote a book, maybe some of you have read it, Emotional Intelligence, Why It Can Matter More Than IQ. I think it was back in 95, he kind of popularized this concept, a person's ability to manage their feelings so that those feelings are expressed appropriately and effectively. So the courtroom, as you all know, is a pressure cooker, right? Lots of pressure. The ability to manage your feelings and your emotions is paramount. But we do have obstacles, right? So let's talk about those for a second. If I say internal obstacles to your presence, to you showing up as the very best version of yourself, as you as attorney, as you to represent your client, what are some internal obstacles that would prevent you from doing that? This is not a trick question.
Self-doubt.
Yeah, which would be what, Koichi? Self-doubt is a what? Yeah, anxiety, Karen, thank you. Right, thoughts and feelings. What's going on in here? What's going on in here? Right? Now here's the next question. Who controls your thoughts and feelings? Who controls your thoughts and your feelings? You do. Karen, I'm going to give you the ding ding winner. Anyone I give permission to, right? You do. Think about, do we always control our thoughts and feelings? It'd be nice if we did, right? It would be nice if we did. But I would posit to say that often during the day, we are giving our feelings to somebody else. Someone cuts you off in traffic. Right? Someone says something you don't like. Right? We are in control of other people. Whoever you give your feelings to controls you. Whoever you let dictate your feelings controls you. So yes, take your feelings back. It's a very powerful place to be. So when you're in the courtroom and you got the hurricane happening around you, right? To be that calm, that center, the eye of the storm, because you choose to be, is a really powerful place to come from. And I would say it's the essence of presence, is the ability to manage your emotions when you need to. And I would even say to manage your thoughts. It's a little bit harder, but it's possible. But it's certainly possible to manage your feelings. It just takes practice, right? It's a skill that you can learn. Next one would be external. That would be, right, environment and people. So we can't always control our environment, right? You can't control the courtroom. You can't control the temperature. You certainly can't control other people. I mean, you can try, but good luck, right? I haven't figured out a way to do it. Of these two things, the only thing that you have power over is the first one. The external ones, all you can do is adapt or overcome. That's it. But you can't do it unless you are centered as a person, unless you're centered in your thoughts and your feelings. Anybody here get nervous before they present? Someone said anxiety earlier, Karen. Anybody get nervous? Yeah, great, good. Get nervous. I say great. Don't try to push nerves away. You want to embrace the nerves. Your nerves and excitement are just two sides of the same coin. Yeah, there you go, Patrick, until I get into it. Two sides of the same coin. The trick is start out nervous, right? Then you flip that coin into excitement. So Patrick, you're definitely onto something. Always nervous until I get into it. Your nerves are there to help you. You get nervous only because your body and your brain is preparing for something important. That's perfectly natural. I get nervous. I get nervous if I'm not nervous, right? So I get nervous before a presentation because, oh, that's my brain going, oh, it's time to get ready for something important. But now it's time to prepare. You don't want to sit in that feeling of being nervous. You have to do something about it. So preparation is key. What I see a lot from my clients is they're very prepared as professionals in the work, but then when it's time to present, they haven't done due diligence in that area. So they do a lot of work, but then it's time to stand up and present. And a lot of that work gets lost in translation because they're not connecting to the audience. So those two things have to go hand in hand. You can prepare both simultaneously. So I have clients when they're preparing the work, they're also preparing the presentation. How will I present this? How will I put this in such a way, storytelling, narrative, themes, all the things you guys do? How will I put this in a way that the audience is going to understand, that's going to resonate with my audience? And you don't wait until the day before, right? I've had clients come up and say, John, you know what? I go, how's it going with the preparation? I feel pretty good about it. I think I'm probably just going to get up there and wing it. I'm like, you are dead in the water. If your practice routine is winging it, I can promise you one thing, it's going to be a disaster. So the preparation is key. And then the next thing is focusing on your audience. What's the WIFM? What's in it for me? If you've heard that acronym before, what's in it for me? What is your audience's? What's the jury's WIFM? What do they want? Give them what they want. Give them a clear story. Give them a confident, authentic speaker. Give them someone they can trust, that they want to listen to, that they believe in. It goes a long way. So preparation, focus on audience. I want to do a quick little exercise for you. Please participate in these. It's going to get a little woo-wooey, all right, but that's okay. Just bear with me, throw your hat over the fence and just try it, okay? So what I like to do is we're going to start with breath, because breath is the key to relaxation. We need to be relaxed if we're going to be present. So what I'd like you all to do, and you can be off camera for this, you can be on camera, whatever you choose to do. I prefer on camera, but you do you. I am going to time us. Let me get my phone on here. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to have you all just focus on breath. So what I'd like you to do is sit up straight in your chair, put your feet flat on the floor, nice long spine, long neck. You put your hands in your lap. And have you ever heard of your diaphragmatic breathing? Anybody familiar with that? Anybody do exercises or yoga or anything like that? So your diaphragm is a large dome-shaped muscle that lives under your rib cage. And it is the muscle responsible for breath, right? So oftentimes when we get anxious or scared or nervous, we start to breathe using our shoulders, chest, neck muscles, and we feel ourselves doing this kind of breathing, right? What happens is we're giving our breath short shrift. We're only filling the top of our lungs with oxygen, and we're not filling up our entire bodies with oxygen. So we're feeling a little out of breath. And so we start to breathe quickly and nervously. What we're going to do is drop that breath down into the diaphragm, drop our shoulders, and we're just going to breathe. So we're going to do something right now quickly called box breathing. And this is something that you can do whenever you feel like, whenever you need a moment to relax, but certainly before you go on to present. So take your hand, just place it on your belly. And what I want you to do is you're going to plop your belly right into your hand. Just let it plop. Nice and relaxed. We're not used to that, but just give it a shot. And what I want you to do is when we inhale, we're going to expand our bellies into our hand. And we're going to inhale through our noses on a 4 count. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then we're going to hold it for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then we're going to exhale through our mouths on a 4 count. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold 1, 2, 3, 4, and then repeat. So I'll just take us through a few cycles and then I'll have you do it. So I really want you to do is really expand into your hand and then contract. I don't want to see shoulders coming up like this. I want your bellies to be expanding, okay? So you can keep your eyes open, closed, whatever you want to do. So we're going to inhale through our noses on 4 and inhale. Hold for 4. Exhale. Hold. 2, 3, 4. Inhale. Hold. Exhale. Now that you have the cycle, I want you to do it at your own pace for 1 minute, and then we'll go from there. Okay, the next thing I want you to do, if your eyes are closed, go ahead and open your eyes. I want you to find an object in the room. It could be any object, I don't care what it is. And for 1 minute, I want you to focus all of your attention on just that object. If you find your mind starting to wander, bring it back to that object, okay? 1 minute begins now. Okay, next I'd like you to close your eyes. And for 1 minute, I would like you to focus on sounds, any sounds you hear in the room. If your mind starts to drift, bring it back to the sounds in the room. 1 minute starts now. Okay, let's stop there, open your eyes. Quick debrief, how do you feel right now? What was harder to do, focus on the sound or the object? What was more difficult? Sound. Liz, why sound?
I think because I'm wearing these headphones and I could hear my own heartbeat and
So you're focusing, it was harder to focus on sound or easier to focus on sound?
a little bit harder. I felt like I wasn't getting very many sounds.
I see what you're saying. I understand. And I noticed your cat walked across at one point when you were focusing on the object. The cat's like, oh, suddenly you went from, oh, look, there's the cat, right? So we get these distractions, right? That we have to pull ourselves back into the present, right? Oh, wait, I wasn't looking at the cat. I'm looking at this glass, right? So there's so much information that pulls our focus, whether it's sound or that is hard. There goes cat again. Hi, cat. Object for me because eyes are open. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, exactly. So more distractions. Sounds can be too, like I'm here in Savannah and we have trains that, run outside my house and there's traffic and stuff in here. So it's kind of like, oh, what's that? And it kind of pulls you away. Start taking note of where your focus is being pulled by things, whether it's external distractions, sometimes it's a thought, right? You could be in the middle of focusing on an object, oh my gosh, I forgot I have that thing due later, or oh, I have a meeting with so-and-so, and that thought pulls you away from the present moment. It happens all the time. Oh, look, a shiny object. Oh, there's a squirrel, right? We start getting distracted. How is that affecting you and how can you bounce back from that? It's going to happen. We're all humans, but how quickly you can bounce back and get back on focus is going to give you a stronger presence. So I'm dating myself, but when I was a kid, we had those clowns, you inflate them and you punch them and then they go down, they pop back up again and you punch it again, it pops back up again. I always think, the faster you can get back up, the faster you can get back in alignment, the more powerful your presence will be. So sure, that's until the point where things aren't even distracting you. You're the person with the free throw. You're present, aware, you have a general awareness, but your focus is so dialed in that nothing can knock you off. You are the eye of the hurricane, right? And that's where I believe your power lives. The last thing I want you to do, and this is based on sports psychology, is I'm going to have you do a 1 minute visualization exercise. So take the power of what you just did, the focus power, and I want you to go through either your day today or what time is it here? 3 o'clock, 2:30 here. Whatever the rest of your day looks like or tomorrow, whatever you choose to do. But I want you to visualize walking through your day. So maybe start tomorrow morning, right? What's your day look like tomorrow? From the moment you get out of bed to the moment you go to bed, I want you to quickly run through your day and I want you to visualize how you want to show up. So if I'm an outsider looking in, right, and I'm going to write about how you showed up that day, what am I going to say? Right? Are we showing up as our best selves or kind of like, I'll just kind of like wing it today, or I'll just kind of like, I'm not going to think too much about it. So I'm going to give you a minute, visualize your day. How do you want to show up? What do you look like? Who do you want to be for people? And how do you want to show up for your clients and for your peers and for your family? So let's do 1 minute of visualization. All right, bring it back. Hopefully you visualize success. And remember, this is a choice, y'all. It's just a choice. How do you want to show up every day? It's not an accident. You have to choose it. Right? Am I going to be the best version of myself today or not so much? It's a choice we make every minute of every day, right? So I always think, why not choose to be the best version of yourself? All right, let's move on to body language. I'm going to go through these pretty quickly. So body language, we're going to get more in technique, right? This is how we show up physically for our audience, for our people in our lives, for our clients. Real easy posture, right? We all know, stand up straight, open body posture. When we close off, when we hunch over, right? We close ourselves off. It's a very weakened position to be in. So we always want to be open to the audience, open to the jury, head up, long spine, open arms, right? It just shows confidence. Gesture. This is one that can be tricky. Your gesture has got to have purpose. The two things I see the most when I work with clients, number one is they over gesticulate. It's too much, and it's from nerves. So they just start doing this windmill. And I go, whoa, 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 let's just slow down. You have to make your gestures mean something. Gestures can be visual aids, can show size and shape and intention, can direct us to the visual aids in the courtroom, right? But if it's just sort of unthought of and extraneous, it becomes a distraction. So that's the number one problem. And another one is when people don't gesture at all. They just sort of stand there with their hand in their pocket, right? We don't trust people who stand with their hands in their pocket. And right away we think, oh, what are they hiding? And we're thinking, oh, what's in their pocket? The worst yet is if they have keys or change and they're jingling the keys and change while they're giving a presentation. Trust me, nobody's listening to what they're saying. They're paying attention to what they're jingling in the pocket. Arms crossed, right? It's a closed off position. We tend not to trust people who look like they're closed off. What are they hiding? Why are they standing like this? Why are they being so off-putting? They're putting a wall between us, right? So open up the body, gesture appropriately. Shakespeare has a great quote, right? Suit the action to the word to the action. It's pretty simple. So the gestures have to help emphasize the point you're trying to make. Facial expression. Look, we can't control what our faces look like, but make sure the facial expression is appropriate to the message. So if it's something serious, as it usually is, right? We probably don't want a big smile on our face. That doesn't mean we can't have moments of levity where we have a laugh and a little giggle, right? But just make sure that I had a college professor. The guy always had a scowl on his face, right? Sociology, Kirby Throckmorton. I'd sit there and he'd just have a scowl on his face and he'd go up and drone for 2.5 hours. Everybody was scared of him. Nobody asked questions because everybody was scared. I met the guy 20 years later, introduced myself and told him, but still had the same look on his face. Couldn't have been, he was the nicest guy in the world, but nobody would ever know it. So make sure what you're giving off is appropriate to the message that you're trying to convey. Eye contact. I tell people to connect with one person in the audience at a time. Connect, land a thought, turn to the next person, connect, land a thought, find somebody else, look them right in the eyes, connect, land a thought. When you look at one person and really connect, everybody else feels that connection too. But a general thing that a note I've heard other people give clients is, oh, just look over their heads. Or look at their foreheads. Trust me, you know when somebody's not looking you in the eyes. Look people in the eyes. Don't be afraid of eye contact. Don't be afraid of a facial expression. It is the quickest way to connect is to look people in the eyes. Walk up to the jury, look them in the eyes, look at one person, deliver the first line. It's a quick way and a quick and effective way to connect. And then movement. Two things I see with this too is similar to gestures. Either too much extraneous movement, where people are sort of pacing back and forth because they're nervous. And then it's a scattered message. We lose the words. Or they stand in one spot like a stump and there's nothing dynamic about it either. So pick the movement. The movement needs to match the message. Can move, stop, deliver a point, right? Move to the next position, stop, deliver a point. But the movement has to have purpose and intention. Remember that word intention that we brought up at the beginning? It has to be intentional. It can't just be an accident. Here's 3 pictures. All right. First one, what's wrong with this guy? I think we can all know. It's a little bit exaggerated, but honestly, I've seen probably worse. So slumped over, right? We don't want this. What about this lady in the middle? What do we like about her or not like about her? Either way. Smile. Yeah. Again, if it's appropriate, right? Quiet confidence. What else? Anything else?
It's kind of gentle and inviting.
Yeah. Now, what's interesting about this is a stock photo. We don't know this young lady. She could be anybody, but we're already inferring things about her just based on a split-second picture. She appears confident by her posture and her attire. So she's standing up straight, so we can really break it down, right? Her gestures are her hands are in front of her, kind of soft hands, relaxed, looking out into the audience. So as I'm saying, every minute of the day, you are sending off a signal. You can't not communicate. It's impossible. You can walk into a room and suddenly everybody's made a judgment about you, whether you like it or not. I like that person. I don't like that person. And all it takes is 2 seconds, right? Think about when you meet someone new. How long does it take for you to create a judgment about that person? Done. I would say that you have some control over how people perceive you just by the way that you stand and by the way you present yourself. So I'm going to give her whoops. I'm going to give her a check. What about this gentleman at the end here? What do we like about him or not like about him? Dynamic. Great word. What's dynamic about him? Kinetic pose. Yeah, some energy in that arm. Yeah, it's a nice gesture. He's connecting his eye contact to whoever this person is, gesturing nicely. He looks like he's connected emotionally to what he's saying, right? I think there's a connection happening. Again, this is just a snapshot in time, but we've already inferred who this person is and what he does. And these are just probably AI generated pictures or models or something, right? So a snapshot in time can make a huge, powerful impact on your image of what you're giving off to people. So I'm going to give this guy a check too. Give him one stop sign and 2 goes. All right. So think about how you want to show up physically. Ask people for feedback that you trust. Hey, when I gave that presentation, how did I look physically? Somebody that's not going to BS you, right? They're going to say, hey, that was really great, but you could probably look up a little bit more. Okay, great. Thank you. Don't check your ego at the door, right? This is not a time for ego. Oh, you're slumped over a little bit. Okay, great. I'll work on my posture. Oh, you weren't gesturing, okay, great. I'll work on my intentionality and my gestures, right? Just one thing at a time. Pick on it and work on it. All right. And then the last one here is attire. I'm certainly not going to tell you what to wear. But I will tell you, I did have one. I was in court and I was watching an attorney, and this guy was dressed to the nines, and he walked up in front of the jury box and he was wearing this. Now, I don't know if you know a lot about watches, but this thing runs about $15,000. I'm not sure how many people on the jury could afford a $15,000 watch. Now, every time this guy raised his hand to gesture, guess what people were looking at? Guess where everyone's attention was, right? Now, I'm not making a judgment whether it's good or bad, but I will tell you that entire jury, every time he lifted his hand up, were staring at that watch. And I don't know if anybody was paying attention to what he was saying. So the watch became the star. And suddenly what he had to say was a very distant second place. So just be careful of what you're wearing. This is knowing your audience. Who are you speaking to? Right? In a room full of high rollers, that wouldn't have been a big deal. He wouldn't have stood out at all because everybody would be dressed like that. But you got to know who your people are, right? So don't wear anything distracting that's going to pull focus from you and the message. And by the way, that guy wound up being a client of mine, and we worked through that. So it was a happy ending. All right, we're going to do this really quick too. So check your posture right now. How are you? Just check your body. How are you sitting? Are you slumped over? How's your spine? Are you feeling like tired? Are you feeling run down? Are you slumped over in your chair? Right? Are you getting sore in your neck from sitting behind the computer all day? Right? So just check your posture. Do this throughout the day. How am I feeling? How's my body feeling? Check your breath. How are you breathing right now? Just be honest with yourself. What's happening right now? Are you feeling a little bit, right? Or are you back and relaxed? Drop your shoulders down a little bit. I'm going to just do some really quick stretches. These are things you guys can do at your desk or in your office, wherever. You can do it before a presentation. You can do it right now if you want. Things that you can do in the middle of the day to just sort of invigorate you a little bit. So let's find that posture again. Feet flat on the floor. Let's sit up real straight. Good. And what I want you to do is take your chin. You're just going to drop it down to your chest. And you're going to stretch the back of your neck out. And just hold it down a little bit. You can take your arms if you want. Pull your chin down. And then just pull over to the side or just, yeah, there you go. Good. Take it to the head. Good. Feel it. And you can use your arm a little bit if you want. Just let the weight of your arm gently pull it to the ear and then the other ear. There you go. And then back down again. Good. And slowly lift your head up. And we're just going to roll the shoulders forward. Keep that breathing, nice deep breath. And let's go back. Nice. Keep the breath going. Keep that breath going in and out. Don't hold your breath. Good. And take your arm and just stretch it across your body. There you go. And then just flex your arm a little bit, and that'll stretch the shoulder a little bit more. And let's do the other arm. And then stretch. And you can even, if your fingers are tired from typing, sometimes I just do a little finger stretch, right? And then the last thing, I do this if I'm sitting at my desk for a long time and I'm feeling those midday kind of like, oh, I'm getting a little bit sleepy in the midday. I do a couple of these power pulls. These are someone said kinetic earlier. These are pretty kinetic. So go ahead and do these with me if you want. We're just going to do 10. So I'm going to start, I'm going to put my hands up here and I'm going to pull them down to my chest. And we're going to do it pretty vigorously for 10. Okay, so we're just going to go, and we're going to do 10 of these. So reach out, and you can breathe out, and we'll do 10 of them pretty quickly. And then I just sort of shake it out. And just those little stretches for me help wake me up a little bit. And if you want to go into if you're sitting around and you feel like I got to give them present, just do a little physical activity. It doesn't have to be the things we did. Just do some light stretches, do a little warm up, get your body going, okay? Activate your body. All right, last thing, let's jump into voice. We're going to work on these areas. Pace, which is fast and slow, pitch, high, low, volume, loud and soft, and then some pauses. So anybody here play an instrument or sing? Anybody like to listen to music? All right, let's start with that one. All right, me too. Think of your voice as an instrument of communication. Most of the times we just take our voices for granted. I'm just going to give and speak. And how I say the words doesn't matter. Right? I'm here to tell you that's not true. Vocal dynamics are really important. I have friends in Los Angeles who make a lot of money as voiceover actors. You wouldn't know these people if you saw them in the street, but you hear them on the radio because they're really, really good at using their voice as an instrument. In this case, to sell products, but you get my point. So we're going to talk a little about voice, right? There's musicality to it. There's music, right? Think about music, beats, measures, forte, pianissimo, crescendo, decrescendo. There's all these elements of music that we can use in our presentations. We just know how to use our voice as an instrument. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And then after this, I'm going to have you guys start jumping on your work, okay? All right. So there's over 100 muscles in your face responsible for speaking. We don't think about muscles. We think about muscles in your body like, oh, I got to warm muscles and stretch out, right? But there's also articulation muscles. So our lips, our tongue, our soft palate, right? These are all muscles, our jaw, all responsible for speaking, articulating, right? We have resonating chambers in our body, which we won't get into today, but there's a whole wealth of muscles that we need to engage in order to be articulate. So some really, really quick warm-ups for you, just some quick lip buzzes. You can follow along with me if you want. Again, it sounds a little silly, but these are really powerful warm-ups. So we can just buzz our lips. Yeah, the motorboat. If you can't do that, you can just take your fingers so we can move our lips around a little bit, but warm up these muscles. And then we'll switch to light humming. And we can play around with the pitch. And then finally, just do some tongue twisters. So repeat after me. 6 sticky skeletons. 6 sticky skeletons, 6 sticky skeletons, 6 sticky skeletons. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers, right? Just go on Google. You can find a million tongue twisters. Pick a few that you like. Warm up your voice. Warm up your articulators. It will help you when you get up in front of a jury to speak, to feel like you can form the words. Warm up these muscles. And right now, you might even be able to feel a little bit of a buzz, a little sensation just from doing that light warm up. But if you spend 2 or 3 minutes working on these, it will help you be better at articulating words. All right. All right. So we're going to jump into it. So here's a little sample opening statement. I'm going to read this to you, and I want you to tell me. Well, I'll let you give me the definition. I'm just going to read this to you, and you tell me what you think. Imagine being in Mr. Williams' shoes, standing on the side of the road, bright lights flashing, Cars whizzing by. He's nervous, anxious, and struggling to maintain his composure. Officer Brown administers a series of field sobriety tests, which are highly subjective and can be influenced by numerous factors. The uneven pavement, the pressure of the situation, and Mr. Williams' understandable anxiety. Despite his best efforts, Mr. Williams is deemed to have failed these tests. Any feedback on that brilliant recitation? You're not going to hurt my feelings. Trust me. What did we think? What was not very engaging about it? Could you hear a vocal pattern? Could you hear? I'm going to just read the first line again. I want you to listen to my tone and see where it drops. Imagine being in Mr. Williams' shoes, standing on the side of the road, bright lights flashing, cars whizzing by. Do you guys hear that? Da 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 da. If this were music, it would be da 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 da, da 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 da. It'd be the records on repeat. You would not listen to that song, I promise you. Nobody wants to listen to a song with one note. Okay? So what happens is oftentimes we fall into vocal patterns. And we lose our audience because we lull them to sleep. Right? If I stood up here for 40 minutes or 30-minute opening statement or closing argument and I spoke like that, my jury would be like, ooh. And I've seen it more times than I can remember. But what we need to do is lift these words off the page. They're two-dimensional words, but it is our job, your job, right, to bring them to life. The stakes are too high not to. Okay, you have to bring them to life. You have to use all of you to lift these words. Now, one really nice trick that you can use, not a trick, but a technique, is to find the operative words. What are the words in this paragraph that give these words their meaning? So if I just look at the first sentence, imagine being in Mr. Williams' shoes, standing on the side of the road, bright lights flashing, cars whizzing by. I'm going to give you $5 in single dollar bills. All right. You only have $5. So for every word that you pick, you have to give me $1 back. So where are you going to spend your money? You get 5 words in the first sentence that you want to highlight. What words are they going to be? I'm being pretty generous. Five words is good. 5 words in the first sentence, from imagine to whizzing by. What words do we think are the operative words in that sentence? Imagine, bright, whizzing. I like those. Awesome. Yeah, put them in chat because then we can actually see them. Imagine, bright, whizzing. Great. We've got $3. $3. I have $2 left. Failed. We got $1 more buck. Imagine, flashing, whizzing, failed. Oh, wait, failed though. Failed is later. I'm just talking about the first sentence. Imagine, flashing, whizzing, bright lights. Okay. Struggling. No, I'm just talking about the first sentence. From imagine to not the whole. You're going to get more than $5 in the whole thing. So why don't we go? We have imagine, flashing, whizzing, bright lights. Okay, anybody care to read this and emphasize those words when you get to them with, let's say, volume or pitch? Who would like to read that sentence and incorporate volume and pitch? So when you get to imagine, flashing, whizzing, bright lights, you punch it up a little bit with some vocal intonation. Anybody want to give it a shot? Any brave souls?
I'll do it.
Yeah, awesome.
Imagine being in Mr. Williams' shoes, standing on the side of the road, bright lights flashing, cars whizzing by.
Nice. Even that little bit of changing the intonation adds a little bit of a little bit of meaning to it, a little bit of power. We can do that with the whole thing. So these are the words that I chose. Again, they're not right, they're not wrong. These are, in my opinion, are the words that I think bring this to life. And the reason I think that is if I just read the words independent of everything else, I can still glean some meaning from it, right? So if I say, imagine, standing, road, flashing, whizzing, nervous, anxious, struggling, composure, sobriety tests, highly subjective, numerous factors, pavement, pressure, situation, understandable anxiety, best efforts, deemed, failed, tests. Right? If I just said those words, independent of everything else, you might not know exactly what I'm talking about, but you could get an idea. Oh, this sounds like something in sobriety. Okay, yeah, there's a high tense situation, right? You could glean a little bit of understanding. But if I read the whole thing with vocal dynamics, now I'm going to do the whole thing, and I want you to listen to where I use pace, pitch, volume to try to bring this to life a little bit, okay? Imagine being in Mr. Williams' shoes. Standing on the side of the road, bright lights flashing, cars whizzing by. He's nervous, anxious, and struggling to maintain his composure. Officer Brown administers a series of field sobriety tests, which are highly subjective and can be influenced by numerous factors. The uneven pavement, the pressure of the situation, and Mr. Williams' understandable anxiety. Despite his best efforts, Mr. Williams is deemed to have failed these tests. So if I lift those words a little bit, just add a little more excitement to it, a little more pitch, a little more pacing, right? It's a little bit more interesting than just reading them. And by the way, when we get to commas, standing on the side of the road, bright lights flashing, our tendency is to bring the inflection down, bright lights flashing. Cars whizzing by. Instead of lifting the inflection up, bright lights flashing, cars whizzing by, it keeps that energy up and it keeps us from falling into those doldrums of repetitive, everything goes down, down, down to the ground to finally the jury's ready to take a nap. All right. So keep the energy lifted and then you can bring it back down at the end of the period. Imagine being in Mr. Williams' shoes, a little bit higher, standing on the side of the road, a little bit higher, bright lights flashing, cars whizzing by. And then I can bring it back down at the period, right? So these are just simple techniques that you all can use right away to help lift these words off the page. Now you add this with gesture, posture, eye contact, some movement, and suddenly now you've got an engaging presentation. So what I'd like y'all to do is now it's time to pull out your, we have some time, 20 minutes or so. Pull out your whatever your material, and what I would like you to do is just look at the words and just highlight the words that you think are the words that are going to lift this off the page. Someone else might have different ideas, but this is you. What words do you want to highlight that you feel are the important words? And just run through it real quick. If you do too many, then none of them have meaning. Does that make sense? So don't do too many, otherwise they all lose their meaning. So just the ones that are really the high dollar words. And then once you do that, I just want you can go off camera for this. I'm just going to give you like a minute and just run through your copy and just practice how I did. Just read it out loud to yourself. Please read it out loud, because if you do it in your head, it doesn't have the same effect. Read it out loud to yourself. You can go off camera, obviously, and mic. And just practice pace, pitch, and volume. And once you practice that, try to incorporate a little body language, right? So we're on Zoom. It's a little bit of a different ball game. We'll talk about that in a second. But right, the principles still apply, right? Sit up straight. You can still gesture above frame. You can see my hands gesturing above frame. Don't be afraid to use your hands. And if you were standing in front of a jury, what kind of body language could you incorporate? And sometimes you can just pencil it in. Oh, this part I could lift my hand up and show the size, something that have to do with size, right? Or here's a place where I could gesture to the visual aids, to the slides. You can just pencil it in if you have a copy and just write the cues. So run through it, practice your voice, add some body language. All right, since we're on Zoom, it's a little bit so we do a lot of Zoom stuff, right? Yeah, I'm sure you all are on Zoom all the time. I know I am. I spend half my life on Zoom. I'd much rather do this stuff in person, but Zoom is what it is. So we have to be conscious of that. So rule of thirds, you probably heard this term before. Some of you, it's a photography term. You break the frame into tic-tac-toe, and then you put the important things that you want people to see on the line. So for me, I believe that the eyes go boom, right in that horizontal line. So I like to frame myself a little bit of headroom, about chest high. Background should not be distracting, right? You want to be lit from the front. I believe that this is, in terms of virtual presence, that this is the most powerful place to put us. It's like an actor being center stage. So by the way, if this doesn't work for you, I get it. I always say with these some workshops, everything I say, it's like a jacket. Try it on. If it fits, great. If it doesn't, great. Try something else. But from my experience, I think that this is probably this framing and lighting is the most effective. If we get here, we diminish ourselves, right? If we're here, we diminish ourselves. Now suddenly I'm tiny. I have no presence. My presence is small. This is obviously too close, right? It's like, whoa, back up, bud, right? I think this is nice. So think about your framing when you're on Zoom. What's my Zoom appearance? How's my Zoom presence coming across? Look, if you're on with family and friends at the family Zoom meeting, no one cares, right? You can do whatever you want. But in terms of professional setting, I believe this is sort of the standard. So something just to keep in mind. All right, what I'd like to do is share. I think the best way for you all to learn these skills are to coach each other, right? Be each other's coaches, hold each other accountable. You know what you like, you know what's appropriate, you know what doesn't work. Constructive feedback is always a good thing. So I would love you to share your speech, your presentation. If it's just a minute, it doesn't have to be long, it can be a minute or two. And then what I would like you to do is, if you want to, there's a Likert scale at the materials that I made a little material packet for all of you. At the beginning are the warm-ups that we did, so you have reference to that after this workshop. But toward the end, I put a Likert scale together, a little 5-point scale for you guys to have a little baseline to just help each other, guide each other with these presentations. And then give each other constructive feedback and then switch. Does anybody want to give it a shot and just kind of throw your hat over the fence and do it, and we can just work on it? We can coach you all the time. Yeah.
I wouldn't mind doing one from real life from a
Please.
case I got. All right. So this is cross-examination of a detective who took DNA and the DNA was negative. So the questions would go like, you took a search warrant for Mr. Harris's blood, correct? Yes, sir. And you went to the jail to take his blood, right? And you took the victim's blood. And what you wanted to see was if any of the blood or other DNA was on any of the clothing taken from Mr. Harris's car, right? So that's a few questions going that way.
Yeah. So can you just do me a favor? Just go ahead and look in the camera. So when we're on Zoom, right, obviously there's no one in the room with us, but this little camera here is somebody's eyes. So if you can just keep your eyes up, look right at the screen. And yeah, thank you, Greg. I was just going to suggest if you could bring your camera down a little.
Yeah, I'm bad at this with Zoom. I'm always not really.
No, it's all good. But if you can frame yourself a little bit more center like this, it's just easier to follow you because we can see you better. There you go. And then just look right into the camera and just ask the questions. You don't have to just just ask us a question.
All right. So you took a search warrant for the defendant's blood, correct? Yes. So to effectuate the search warrant, you went to the jail, right? You did took the saliva from Mr. Harris, correct? And he didn't give you a hard time about it. He cooperated, correct? So and you also took saliva from the victim, right? Yes. So what you were trying to do with these was send it to the crime lab and see if the victim's DNA was on any of the clothing of the defendant, right? Yes.
Great. So good. Greg, thank you. What is a note that we can give Greg right off the bat? I see something right away that I think you could fix and be pretty quick. We talked about it. The quickest way to connect with somebody is eye contact. Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Exactly.
Well,
So
I'm talking to a witness.
I understand. Right now, we're the witness.
Okay.
So we're the witness. So what I want you to do is that little green dot at the top of your computer, or that's where you don't have to look at the green dot. You can pick somebody's face. I don't care who it is. It could be mine. It could be Edith or Jeff or Kyochi, whoever, pick somebody's face and make us the witness. And then I want you to look right at them when you're delivering the question. I don't want your eyes to do any straying. Just boom.
So where was I looking? I couldn't.
It was just a little bit, Greg, was just a little bit unfocused. So what I saw was just the eyes kind of, and it's because of thinking. Oftentimes when we think, our eyes wander, but we can think and stay connected, right? The next question I would like to ask is, so I can think and still look you in the eyes. So just look us right in the eyes, pick one of us, make us the witness. And then if you find you wanted to think and move your eyes to think, fight that impulse. Okay.
All
Just
right.
try it one more time.
So what you were trying to find out was if the victim's blood was on any of the defendant's clothing that you seized out of his car, correct, sir?
I don't know about you guys, but to me, that makes a huge difference. And it's a small adjustment. Everything I'm talking about, these aren't life, you don't have to move to make these happen. One small thing can make a powerful, if you looked a witness in the eye and just delivered that, boom. Is that the truth? Is that the fact? And then they're like, well, yes. And you're just locking that eye in. And now it's like, I think of a plug in a socket, right? Eye contact is putting the plug in the socket. Boom, connection. But you're not making eye contact. You're putting the plug here. You're slamming against the wall. There's no light going on. It's just.
Right.
Just
it's easier to do in person than it is on Zoom for me.
That it is. I agree with that 100%. That's why I said I prefer being in person because, we're dealing with people.
Yeah.
But the way the world is, it's the way it is. So just get used to, you don't have to look at the green dot because I don't like to look at a green dot, but I will keep my eyes up at the screen.
Right.
And I do look at people's faces. So for you, I would say that connect your thoughts. So oftentimes when we talk, we break up our sentences. So ask the question one more time. The one you just asked. Ask the question.
Right. So what you were trying to do was to see if there was any of the victim's DNA on the clothing you seized from my client, correct? Yes.
That was good. So what I'd like you to do is take the pause out from what you see over that very first thing you said. Say it again. What you
wanted to do was to
take that pause out. What you wanted to do was, right? So there's no what you wanted to do was, because we cut our energy. What you wanted to do was XYZ, isn't it?
Okay. Right.
That. Do one more time.
What you wanted to do was find out if there was any of the victim's DNA on the clothing taken from the defendant, right?
So much better. I'm going to give you one more no. Don't hate me.
Okay.
Careful not to do an extraneous head movement. In person, this might not be a big deal, but because we're all in our own little TV shows here, right? Brady Bunch. I'm dating myself again. Every little movement of your head becomes a little bit exaggerated. So try to keep still. There's power in stillness.
Right.
Still, eye contact, ask the question, no pauses. So what you try to do is XYZ, isn't that right? Still. Try it one more time. I promise the last time.
All right. So what you wanted to do was compare the victim's DNA with the clothing found in the defendant's car, correct?
Yeah. So
right.
those
I'm still a little wobbly.
It's okay. It's like I used to do guest lecture at law schools, and they don't have time. I worked with this judge, and he's like, John, we don't have time to teach these things. We were too busy teaching law. I'm like, I get it. So these aren't skills that are natural to a lot of people, and we don't necessarily learn them. So it's you're learning how to walk, right? So just keep practicing. Those two little adjustments for you. I don't want to give you too much, but eye contact and stillness. If you can focus on those two things, it's going to make a big difference. So when you're in court and you're looking at that witness, boom, you're looking right in their eyes.
Okay.
All right. And
I'll be asking that very question pretty soon, so I'll remember that for sure.
Well, now you got it. All right. Awesome.
Thank you.
Anybody else want to go? Anyone wants to give it a shot?
Have you ever been convinced that you are 100% correct and that your spouse or partner or coworker are wrong. I have a lot with my husband, meaning I'm right and he's wrong. However, I admit there are times when my husband is right and I am wrong. Yes, I am surprised when this happens. And it always shocks me when that happens. So I ask that you remember this parable as throughout our time together, and even when you're in the juror room and I'm not with you. That's it.
How'd that feel?
Kind of awkward.
Yeah, that's all right. That's fine. That's where it is right now. It is what it is. Let's try the first line again.
Okay.
I think it's a question.
Have you ever been convinced that you are 100% correct and that your spouse or partner are wrong?
Okay, I'm going to stop you right there. Can you make that a question? And what I mean by that is, can you take the inflection up instead of your partner is wrong? Your partner is wrong? Have you ever where your partner is wrong? Like, leave it hanging there for a second. So take your inflection up, ask a question. Have you ever thought that your partner was wrong? I have, right? Whatever the next thing is. Just try that first line.
Okay. Have you ever been convinced that you are 100% correct and that your spouse or partner are wrong?
That's better. And even this isn't even be that drastic. And that your spouse or partner is wrong? Huh? Have you? Have you? Huh? Right?
Yeah.
So just taking that inflection up a little bit, because then that makes people, and then whatever you want them to think, yes or no, you nod your head. Have you ever thought that?
Okay.
Because then what are they going to say? They're going to go, what? Yeah, because you're going like this. It's a sales technique, right? Salespeople do it. Hey, you want to buy this car? Of course you do. I'm nodding my head. So that means you go, well, yeah. Right. So as you say it, take the inflection up and just give, it doesn't have to be over exaggerated, but just give us a little nod.
Have you ever been convinced that you are 100% correct and that your spouse or partner are wrong?
Yeah, great. And then what's the next line?
I have a lot of times with my husband.
Yeah.
Meaning I'm right and he's wrong.
I like that juxtaposition with the hands. So the gestures, I'm right, he's wrong, right? So you're right, wrong. We're kind of like doing that little dichotomy. What the same note I gave to Greg, watch your, I know you might be reading this and that's fine. But if you have it memorized, look us right in the camera again. And see if you can mind sitting up a little bit straighter, Edith. And I know it looks like you have an arrangement here. Maybe you can't get the camera closer to you, but if you can, it's always nice to have a little bit more of a, think of a movie, a TV show. When they frame up actors, they're framed like I am right now. Yeah. And then if you can get the camera, I guess in your situation, it would be down a little bit, because otherwise what happens if you're looking up, it diminishes you a little bit. Like it makes you, like when you're looking down at a little kid and you're the position of authority. So like in film, we call it a Dutch angle. When you're looking up and when they show the powerful person, they always show an up angle and it makes them look big. But where you're sitting, it's a down angle. So it's diminutive. It makes you look a little bit smaller.
Okay.
So if you get the camera, so that green dot is eye level, like you're talking right across the table from somebody. Now we're on equal footing in Zoom, obviously. So I don't know if you can do that. You don't have to do it now. That's fine. But if there's a way to think about that, to frame yourself in a more, so it's an even standing, it's not a dominance or submissive position, it's an equal footing.
And what's that word that you said? That you described it as a certain.
It diminishes you a little bit.
Okay.
Dutch angle?
The Dutch angle?
Yes.
A Dutch angle is a cinematic term. So when they shoot an actor or even a building and they want to make it look ominous or big, they shoot it from below. So if you think of like film noir, right? They would shoot buildings up and and they put the storm behind it and it looks like a scary, because it's just called the Dutch angle. Or if they want the bad guy, oftentimes in a movie, when they introduce the bad guy, they shoot him from below looking up because he looks like he's 12 feet tall. It's the camera angle. But if the opposite's true too, so if the camera's looking down at you, it makes you look diminutive and it weakens you. So on Zoom, we want to put ourselves in the most powerful frame without looking ominous, right? And for us, I believe that it's eye level. That camera is right. It's like looking at your best friend sitting across the table having a cup of coffee.
The camera's so high above you that it looks, when we look at you, it looks like we're looking down at a little kid. So that's
It's
what's,
like this. It's like it's this. I'm exaggerating, but it's a little bit like this.
there you go.
There, that's way better. And then bring it down a little bit so we can see a little bit of your upper chest area. Yeah. And yeah, great. And so look us right in the camera again. And just ask that first question. Just give us like 2 little nods. Doesn't have to be over exaggerated.
Okay.
And then start, I know I am, or whatever the thing is. Sometimes my husband's right. Sometimes whatever the lines are, we'll go from there.
Okay.
But let's look us right in the eye. No movement of the head.
Okay.
Laser beam eyes.
All right. Have you ever been convinced that you are 100% correct and that your spouse or your partner are wrong? I have a lot of times.
Great. And give us a chance to respond. Have you ever did that wrong? Give us a beat.
Okay.
I have. So if you jump right into the answer, then we don't have time to process it. Right. So if you ask the question, I go, have I ever had that? Yeah. Yeah, I have too. And then you say, yeah, I have. But you give us a moment to process. So whenever you ask a question, don't jump right into the next thing. You have to give the jury a minute to process it.
Okay.
Let them think about it. Let them correlate it to their own experiences. Because once they can attach it to their own experience, now it resonates. But if it lives outside of them, they're not connected to it. So you have to give them a chance to internalize it and make it relevant to their context. And now we have a connection.
Okay. Makes sense.
Yeah. So I would say for you, I mean, you already have natural vocal dynamics. I can tell because I heard we were eavesdropping when you had your audio off. And you actually made an adjustment. I think the word was shocking or something like that, you said.
Mm-hmm.
And you said shockingly, da-da-da, but then you switched it and you put the emphasis on shocking and it was better. It brought it to life. So that was, you already knew to make the adjustment and you already could feel it. You have already good instincts. So follow those instincts, just slow down, ask the question, look us in the eyes and connect.
Thank you.
And I think the framing like this is better in my opinion.
Okay.
Yeah. What about you, Jeff? Did you have anything?
Yeah, I've got, part question, and then I'm willing to read a sentence or two from a speech I gave recently.
Sure.
But I gave the speech before I realized that you could use a teleprompter app on Zoom.
Yeah.
So that you look like you're engaging in eye contact all the time with the audience. Now, before I gave this particular speech, I didn't have such a teleprompter app. And so what I've done and what I have done a lot recently is I'll put the text of the speech, whether it's in hard copy or on like a mobile phone, in Word version, and you're looking. So it's right behind the green light at the top, the camera, and so it looks like right now my head is probably too big, but it does look like I'm engaged in eye contact. Let me just read a sentence.
Yeah.
For my Uncle Russ went on from Omaha Beach, serving in General Patton's Third Army, playing a vital role in the liberation of France, and later defeating Hitler during his last stand at the Battle of the Bulge. Now, did it look like I was in eye contact with you the whole time?
Honestly, it looks a little bit like you're reading.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is kind of, it's not just you. This is just the way it is. It's the nature of reading, which is why I'm not for reading, like when people read presentations, because I believe it puts a wall of words between you and the audience.
Yeah.
Right. So right now your focus is on a teleprompter and the words that are scrolling and not missing the words and not mispronouncing words and getting it.
Yeah.
Well,
have you ever seen it? Obviously the way I do it is kind of awkward because I'm holding something up behind the camera. Yeah. But with a teleprompter, you're saying that an app with a teleprompter wouldn't necessarily help?
In my opinion, no. I'm not a big fan. This is just my opinion.
And ideally, I'm not either. I would prefer to, extemporaneously talk. But sometimes, especially if you've got a case with a lot of really, important details and you've got to get them just right, you really have no option but to read. But some people seem to be able to do it better than others. I used to know a lawyer by the name of Alan Joseph, for example. Some of you might have heard of him. He's no longer with us, but he was at Rogers, Joseph, O'Donnell, and Quinn out in San Francisco, government contracts lawyer. He never gave a presentation in his life that I ever heard, and I heard many of them, without reading. And his scripts were every sentence kind of in outline format.
Mhm.
So that if he lost his place or if a judge asked a question, he could immediately pick up on what he needed to say next. And he was always brilliant because he was reading. Okay. But he could do it in a fashion in which he didn't make it look like he was reading. And I don't know how he did it. To this day, I don't know how he did it.
Practice. I will say this, you're right. There are times when you just can't get away from it. And I can understand that. It's making it sound, I mean, like I'm an actor, right? It's making it sound words that you didn't write, that you have to say exactly in a certain way, but they have to sound like they're being, this is a wonderful saying by this wonderful British director, they have to sound freshly minted, right? Every word has to come right off the press, right? For the first time, even though you said it 100 times before. So the teleprompter, the thing that I just showed you all before when I pulled up that little opening statement, if what your friend probably was really good at and very practiced at was using his voice in a really natural way instantly. So the more you practice this and you start seeing a chunk of dialogue, chunk of words, you're able to break it down, and then you're able to see the words as they come by, and you instinctively know which words are the operative words. You instinctively know how to use your voice because you practice it 100 times, 1,000 times over. You know how to use gesture because you practice it. All of these things are just skills. So your friend, there was no miracle. He was just very skilled at what he did through probably a lot of practice. So I would say that would probably, so it is possible. I haven't seen too many people who are really great at it, but they are out there. Like your friend obviously was really good at it. It's just a skill. It's like learn piano. Like you just got to practice the keys. And then, how do you play that Mozart piece? Well, it took me about 15 years, but that's how I played the Mozart piece.
That's another good example would be, the Democratic National Convention, for example. They have teleprompters.
Yes.
Now, some people are much better at using them than others. Barack Obama, for example, I would say is a real aficionado at it because it doesn't even look like he's reading.
Yeah.
And he times everything perfectly with what the audience is reacting with. Now Bill Clinton went last night, and apparently he tore up his original speech, which had been loaded on the teleprompters, and they couldn't, for whatever reason, maybe he was writing up to the last minute. They couldn't load it in time for him to give his speech last night, so he read it. He had a hard copy speech, and frankly, I'm a big fan of Bill Clinton's, but frankly, he did a miserable job. But that's just another example of how some people do it well and some people don't. But I think a teleprompter in person probably is much easier to read than a teleprompter on Zoom. But I'm going to experiment. I'm going to download an app and start experimenting with Zoom teleprompters because my big thing is I was just too big in the camera.
Yeah.
I want to be able to talk from here because then you can also gesture at certain points.
It's just a skill. Like I have an app, I did an online course and I so much stuff. I'm like, I'm just going to put it on the teleprompter and read it. But then I went back and looked at the video and I'm like, I can see my eyeballs moving. So
that's the problem. It's a big problem. Also, if you got to slow it down for whatever reason, you got to look down at your keyboard and stop it, which is very problematic as well. So.
Yeah, there's no easy way, right? You're the teleprompter, and then you got to learn the technical. You got to the technical skills down and the technique. Yeah. Or there's contemporaneous where then you just have to remember things, and so either way, you got to learn some kind of skill. The politicians, I mean, Obama and Clinton, those guys have had so much practice and so many coaches and so much experience that it comes to the point where they're so at home in those stages that it's just natural. And that's why I was getting to the presence, the relaxation, the breathing. Because when you're that relaxed on stage, then you're just riffing. It's jazz at that point. You
Right.
know,
Oh, exactly. Yes.
the problem is when we're tight and tense and in our heads, right, and thinking, the minute you're in your head, you're dead. You're dead in the water. The minute you're in here, forget about it. You've got to be outside your head into the audience.
Yes.
But they focused on the audience, focus on your message, and then it's not about you anymore. And then you're prepared, and the words just start coming out eloquently.
Yeah. And it's harder to do that on Zoom because you don't get any feedback. So you don't know, how long to pause, for example, between sentences. If you're getting a huge reaction, you really don't know it.
Yeah.
One other question. Do you have an opinion on any particular teleprompter app for Zoom that is better than others?
I don't. I can't remember the one I downloaded, Jeff. Gosh, it was like last year. I don't have any. I don't use a teleprompter really much in my everyday, so I don't.
Right.
I'm not really up on that technology. At a studio I was working at for a while, we had one, but again, it's just if you need to use it, I get it. Just practice, and even just reading out loud and record. Grab your phone, record yourself in a Zoom. You can record on Zoom, record yourself, and then play it back and leave the judge over here, right? That critic that goes, and just objectively look at yourself and go, okay, what are some changes that I can make? And then just keep practicing. And it's just a skill, it's learning the scales, But I think for you, there's probably something that probably comes in really handy. It's just about the technique. Did you have anything you wanted to do other than that? Did you have any other speech or anything you wanted to?
Well, I could read another couple sentences.
Sure.
Okay.
I would like to see you do without reading. I would like to see. I try to just. Well, if you have to read, that's fine. But if you read, connect with us too.
Ouch. Yeah. Okay. But tragically, just as victory was within reach, Uncle Russ was killed in action while crossing the Saar River as one of the first Allied troops to enter Germany.
Great. So what I would do is I'd try to take all the pauses out. Can you say it again? And I want you to try it all on, how many sentences is it? 2?
Yeah. Well, let me just try reading it once. But tragically, just as victory was within reach, Uncle Russ was killed in action on February 22nd, 1945, while advancing into Germany. He was among the first Allied troops to cross the French border, losing his life to machine gun fire on the bank of the Saar River. He was just shy of his 20th birthday, and my mother was only 13.
That was great. So what I like you to try to do, it's a little bit choppy. So every sentence only gets one breath. So your first sentence, take a big breath, and then as you're speaking, there's no pausing between words. It's just think of the train's on the track, and you're just moving. And then when you hit the end of the period, that's the end of the station. It's a station. Then you can take another breath, and then on to this. So just try the first sentence, just one breath.
All right. But tragically, just as victory was within reach, Uncle Russ was killed in action on February 22nd, 1945, while advancing into Germany. He was among the first Allied troops to cross the French border, losing his life to machine gun fire on the bank of the Saar River. He was just shy of his 20th birthday, and my mother was only 13.
Yeah, I love that last part. He was just, what was it? He was just shy of, what was it?
Of his 20th birthday.
Just shy of his 20th birthday. I love that dramatic pause. And my mother landed, was only 13. So what do you want us to get from this?
I'm just trying, I was actually setting the stage for something else. But I had just visited Omaha Beach. I just got back from Paris. I was over there for 12 days and hired a tour guide, and we went all over Normandy. So I tried to recreate where Russ went. It's kind of a prelude. We want to get our mother out there. She's 93. But then I went on and I tried to weave that story into a sort of a predicate for um, talking about what's important in life, and how in the practice of law standing for other people's rights is the most important thing you can do. So it was like a 20-minute speech total.
Yeah.
But I did read it. I probably was too choppy. But what I thought, I did this with Greg Hicks too when we were together in the room.
Yeah.
I did highlight certain words, which I tried to do here again, which I had not done before. I did have a few words italicized, so I had sort of had your concept down, but I didn't do it nearly enough. I only had maybe one word per paragraph italicized, when you really need several words in each sentence italicized.
Yeah, I gave you guys 5. Sometimes you just need
Yeah.
3. But it just depends on the sentence. But I would say the choppy, and that is such a powerful experience that we are obligated to rise to the occasion, right? It's like I had a great Shakespeare teacher. She said, you cannot bring Shakespeare down to you. You have to scale yourself up to Shakespeare, right? So because that experience in Omaha Beach is epic, I mean, it doesn't get any, I can't think of anything that really, that it's got to be done in an epic way. And I'm not talking about overacting, but and I don't want to get too woo-woo-y, but your emotional depth has got to match the experience of that event. Now, I'm not saying you have to be all weepy, but just the feeling of how the reverence for it has got to be. He was 20 years old.
Right. When I gave the actual speech, I had difficulty with the emotional part of it.
I'll bet.
And I think it showed. I didn't cry, but I came close to it. But obviously that is very dramatic.
Yeah.
And if it's real, as this is, for my family, it's still a big thing. My mom never stops thinking about her brother Russ. It was totally natural. It didn't come across just now as much because I did it once and it's a different setting here. But I was, I'm sure people could tell that I was very close to the line of getting very overly emotional, but I didn't. I managed to keep it at bay.
And just that's a really powerful place to be.
Yes.
When you can see someone holding it in, it was more powerful than when they let it go. So if you see someone crying and sobbing, you might feel bad, but it doesn't necessarily move you. What moves you is when you see the person fighting it.
Yes.
Right? So I would say, first of all, it was really beautifully written. And then the rest would just be, the delivery would be really finding, you can even elevate different levels. There's something called the ladder technique, where you start out and you build, like, think of, I have a dream. I have a dream. I have a dream. I have a dream. I have a dream, right? And he keeps raising and then he drops back down. I have a dream, right? So there's a technique that you can use vocally to elevate the action and make it more tense in the drama. So we're like, oh, what? And then dropping it back down again. There's a million different techniques like that you could use, especially in a story like this, that will really lift it off the stage and elevate it on that scale that I was just talking about. But it starts with that writing. I mean, the writing was really wonderful. So the rest of it is just.
But see, that's why I find myself anyway having to read so much, is because it's very difficult to extemporaneously say something like this. Because if you use, even one detail and it matters. Like, for example, when I tried to do it extemporaneously a few minutes ago, I missed the date of his death, which is, it doesn't sound like a big thing, but, for people who know their history, I mean, February of 45, that's tragic just hearing that, because there's only a few more months he had to hold out, So just forgetting little details like that makes a difference. And you don't forget them, obviously, if you read. So.
And something like that, even with the body language and the gestures, can be really deliberate and kind of measured and slow, because you want people to process it, so nothing's rushed. Everything has its own moment in time. I mean, it's poetry. it's poetry. And so we're obligated, I believe, as performers and coaches and attorneys and people who are storytellers, I believe that we're obligated to elevate ourselves to the level of the language. So these are just, everything I talk about is just this techniques to how to get us there.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I'm going to do some research on Zoom apps and see what I can come up with. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. But this is very helpful. Thank you very much.
Great. I just want to end on this real fast. So if anybody's still here, if you want any work on any of this or coaching, here's my information. You can take a snapshot. I do a lot of one-on-one. I do a lot of leadership, team communication. One of my favorites is opening statements. So we really kind of get granular and take a deep dive on structuring, on the storytelling aspect of things, on developing the themes, and really mining the most powerful and impactful moments of your opening statements. And then once we kind of get a nice shape and structure to it, working on the delivery. So I love that workshop. Or if you want to work one-on-one, know anybody who does, I'm here for any of you. I want to thank you all for being here, and I really appreciate it.